that we had on Saturday, where so many things have been said at so many fora and nothing ever gets done because people are not willing to do the right thing at the right time in the right way. If we are going to do anything about our nationally determined contributions, we have to step up and be serious. And if we have a situation where, I think, let me see, Kenya is going for 120 megawatts, sorry, 1,200. Morocco, 3,300. Nigeria, 18,000. South Africa, 8,400. And Ghana, you're going for what, 250? You're not being serious. You're not being serious. I happen to have the unfortunate duty of having to go through the renewable energy portion of the long-term development plan. And one of the issues that comes up there is we have not factored in changes in technology. We say we are going to drop from 1.3 tons per person to 0.8. That's what we have in the long-term plan. But surely we can do better than that. But the fact is that there's some basic ways that we are not addressing the problem of increasing in electricity consumption, energy consumption, because of the way we do things. Case in point, if you drive around on a Saturday or Sunday, you see the number of street lights, security lights, whether it's LED or compact fluorescent, it is still on during the daytime. Between my house and the main junction, I can count at least 20 or 30 of these things on all the time. Why is it so? Because the energy is subsidized. And if every Ghanaian realized that when you see somebody's light on when it doesn't need to be on, you are paying for it. Because it's our taxes which are paying for it. But you dare go to the man's house and tell him that his security lights are on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He will tell you something that I know. Go away, too known. Same problem we have when somebody is throwing rubbish out on the street and you draw the attention to it. So what I'm saying is that we need a fundamental change in the attitude of the Ghanaian towards energy and renewable energy at that. We need to start conserving energy. We have focused on mainly hydro, solar, and to an extent wind. And we have the plant that is looking at wave energy as well. But I think that the potential of biomass, which is something that we are familiar with, and I'm not talking about biomass in trees or sawdust. I'm talking about biomass in human excreta. 26 million Ghanaians. 1 kilo a day minimum. If you're on a heavy wache and yokogari diet, you can even hit 2 kilos. That is all biomass which we can use for energy. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think that if we are going to move in this direction, we should be looking at the carbon footprint of ourselves as individuals. I know that during the elections in many countries, middle-income countries as Ghana is now, they report on the carbon footprint of the officials as they're running their election. It's a daily in the papers. This candidate has spent one ton on airfares or whatever. Can we cost the carbon footprint in this country of V8 engines? We need, as I said, to get serious and appreciate the problem. I admit that the contribution in global terms of Ghana as a nation, as the average individual Ghanaian to the global emission is not that much. But the fact is, the world is rapidly approaching an unknown tipping point where the amount of carbon dioxide we spew out may cause the climate to suddenly switch. The problem is we don't know when that will be, so we don't know if the fact that we don't have water we can drink from a tap and we have to produce plastic bottle to drink water. This is the one bottle that is going to cause the whole situation to collapse. So everything we do, we have to try and, reduce, conserve, reuse, and recycle. Because everything that we produce, again, is energy that we are consuming, and that is contributing to our, the inability, I'll say this in advance, the inability of us to meet our nationally determined contribution targets. I was part of the team that wrote the section on adaptation, and we were very, very modest in our targets. It's just like we have targets now for vehicular emission. I happen to chair the Ghana Standards Authority Committee on Environment. We are going for Euro 2 standard for vehicular emission. Euro 2 dates back to 1994, 1996. Why? Because if we apply Euro 6 standard as the rest of the world or Europe is doing, about 85% of our vehicles will have to be parked. We are not being serious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Prof. Plenty of food for thought. I'll give the speakers a chance to respond. But we'll first go to Ishmael Echikumji, Executive Director.
I once spoke somewhere and somebody told me, look, what you said is true, but you can't say it the way you said it. And today I feel like saying it the way I want to say it. But Prof made quite a few statements, and he ended by saying that we're not serious. I think as a people, as somebody who has been active in this sector for close to 20 years now, one thing is obvious: we are very good at coming up with documents, excellent documents that everywhere we go as a people we can, and we are also good at packaging them nicely and showing it to everybody how good we are in articulating our intentions. But sometimes some of the things we put in the document, we don't believe in it, or we are not too sure how we're going to get there. So they remain intentions, not backed by any concrete actions. And that's the reason why, after 6 years of passing the Renewable Energy Act, I'm hearing that it's going to be amended. What went wrong? After so many months, so many years of consultation, the act was passed into law, and we are already thinking about amending it, not because the act, there's anything wrong with the act, but it's because we haven't implemented the things in the act. So, for example, we talk about, when the act talks about renewable feed-in tariffs, it didn't only restrict itself to, it said the feed-in tariff scheme will consist of, and it lists 3 things. One is the feed-in rate, which we quickly passed. It talked about open access. We've done the codes. The third thing is the purchase obligation, which was an integral part of the scheme. 6 years down the line, we're still talking about a framework to determine what obligations should be imposed on the distressed utilities and the 24 bulk purchases. No wonder everybody is running to ECG and looking for power purchase agreement, because in the midst of all the confusion, they are the obvious targets, and politicians are forcing them to sign PPAs to the extent that they've signed more PPAs than they probably can handle. Okay, so what happened to the renewable purchase obligation? If we thought it was a good thing, let's operationalize it so that you not only, if you're a private developer, you're not only looking at one entity, you're not only looking at ECG, but you're looking at several other people, the mines, and all these bulk consumers who you can go to and tell them that, look, you have this obligation to purchase, you have this obligation to supply, I can help you meet that obligation. At the moment, everybody's looking at ECG, and if you came into this country and asked me whether you want to do business with ECG and I should advise you, I would tell you, don't go there. And it's not because the people at ECG are bad people. It is because as a business entity, they are not a viable entity. And that's how come you still want guarantees after they've signed the PPAs. And that's how come after all the PPAs that have been signed, only 2 have gotten off the ground. And there are negotiations and there are discussions as to whether we shouldn't be canceling some of them. We sat here, we heard that our target for 2030 is 2,500 megawatts. The provisional licenses that have been issued so far, the capacity is close to over 5,000, 5,600. At the time, 82 of those licenses have been issued. What are we doing? Is it that we didn't mean it, or we have a target of 2,500 by 2030? By 2015, 2016, 82 provisional licenses have been issued to deliver capacities in excess of 5,000. So there is a bit of, I think there are a bit of inconsistencies in everything that we're trying to do. And that's why I said either we don't believe in what we want to do or we just want to do it. We announced a net metering policy, and we've gotten a lot of serious people have actually gone ahead and invested in the systems, and they are not getting ECG to connect them. I can take you to Techiman right now and show you a frustrated person who has invested, and now we're hearing that I heard it for the first time today, that VRA or NETCO and ECG are supposed to come up with a sustainable business model that will determine what we do with the net metering. So when we announced the net metering, when we gave people the go-ahead, when we advertised the processes that one needed to go through, what were we thinking? And for me, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the Renewable Energy Act. It's because all the provisions in the Act that would have made it a very good Act, we haven't been able to operationalize it. Go all over the world. There's nowhere renewable energy, they've been able to promote it effectively without a renewable energy fund. Everywhere. Tell me where they did it without a fund or a special incentive package. Here in this country, if you are interested in renewables and you want even something on your home, you go and nobody is prepared to give you any credit facility below what they call their base rates. Why would I borrow at 25%, 30% to put a renewable energy technology on my rooftop, when in actual fact I'm even required to pay this back in 5 years? Maximum. That's the best deal that you can get. It's crucial. There are private developers in this country or elsewhere who would like to do business, but they can't do it. There has to be an appropriate financing mechanism. The Act provided for that, we haven't operationalized it. So I'm looking forward to what kind of amendments we are thinking about. I honestly believe that we need to make sure that everything in the Act, we have fully operationalized it. talking about some of the things that I think we say, but we probably don't mean it. The IND, well, it used to be INDC, now it's Ghana NDC. I hope you people are aware of the political implications of that. Ghana NDC. Okay. So there used to be an I that made it a little bit comfortable, but now it's gone. So it's Ghana NDC. We need about 22 billion US dollars to be able to implement that. And the bit that is coming from GOG is about 1.6 billion. Where is the rest going to come from? We have a target of doing 2,500. We're told we need about 7 billion. 7 billion US dollars. And Prof is telling us that our targets are not ambitious enough. So if the 250 or whatever we're talking about, we need about 7 billion. How do we connect the two? You go to South Africa, they had this juicy wind policy that allowed a lot of people to come, and now they are all running away from that. So let us make sure, for me, the policies, we have them. The bioenergy policy that we are now told that has been approved, that policy was drafted in 2010. Why has it taken us 7 years to now be talking about approving that policy? So, look, all the things that we know we need to do, let's do them. The policies are good. Let's make sure that they don't remain as policy intentions, but they are realistic ideas that we believe we'll be able to implement, and let's get them running. I mean, I sometimes feel for my friends in the ministries and who are working on these documents. How many times you have to review one document? About 10 times. 5 years, every government comes and he said, let's put it aside. Please, we know what we need to do. We have a blueprint. Let's make sure that we are operationalizing them, and we wouldn't have to come and always be talking about the same thing. I will end here. But as I said, I wanted to be a little bit more provocative, but I'm restrained, so.
Are you restrained?
Yes, I am.
Now it's the turn of Benwachi from Twitter.
Thank you, Doc. I think I'll try and see if I can bring the temperature down.
Oh, the temperature isn't up. Oh.
After the two submissions. I agree entirely that we are being conservative in the way we are planning. I see that beyond our commitment to SDGs and our need to reduce greenhouse gases, we have strong advantage to push for renewables in this country. 250 megawatts. That is about, seriously, looking at about 100,000 rooftops and maybe 20,000 small, scale businesses, and pushing for them to adopt just solar technology. And beyond this room, if we can get serious at it and get people to believe in the technology, understand where we are, with renewable energy, we can get this done in the next few years. And that is why we think that this is pretty conservative, and we can be a little more ambitious, try to open up the space, and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Increasingly, our plants are still pushing us towards that direction. We've been told by the ministry today that we need to consider coal. And you ask yourself, why do we need coal? When we don't produce it here, we are going to have to import it with dollars and then bring it in. When we have the sun, we have the biomass that we can use to generate electricity. Let me stay on the biomass a little bit. I mean, if you look at our timber industry, we cut the logs and all the branches go waste, and we set them ablaze in the bushes. These are significant sources of fuel that we can just convert straight into electricity. But we haven't been conscious about them. And over the years, we burn that fuel, and we spend money, even in this world, to generate electricity using diesel. So these are fundamental challenges we have that if we paid attention, we can reduce our dependence on imported fuel for electricity generation. Even if you want to grow your own trees to convert to electricity, for 100 megawatts of plantation, to convert to the amount of fuel you need for a 100 megawatt plant, that could create employment for over 3,000 people. And we have the lands that are set ablaze every year for grass cutter and mouse. So can we get a little bit serious to look at the holistic picture and say we are spending too much to bring in fuel when we have capacity to produce the fuel here? Can we push to get people to understand that solar is now cheaper than the initial thought that we had, that it's too expensive? And that is what people still understand. Today, the grid is not attractive, and solar can compete with any generation system in Ghana. How do we get a middle class that can afford to appreciate this so we can quickly spread the risk and get investment from individuals to be able to bridge, the gap and be able to extend energy quicker? And these are the reflections that we want to see beyond these meetings, to see pragmatic steps that ensure that we can quickly roll out these plans and achieve them. We are also consistently being technology importers, and we see that there is an approach to encourage research and development, but they are always in the document. You don't see the steps to ensure that we can encourage our youth, we can encourage our universities, our polytechnics. I mean, you go, Accra Polytechnic here, you go there, you see renewable technologies being developed. Nobody is pushing them to even be able to build prototypes that they can sell and market to attract investment. And they are sitting idle. Those are the things that, policy-wise, we should be aiming at to ensure that we can push these developments and build some technology here that we can also contribute to the world. We shouldn't always be consumers of technology. We should try to develop technology in our own country. The renewable energy adoption should also push us to see what contribution we can give to the rest of the world by initiating technology locally. I think I would end it here and allow the rest to also come in.
Thank you very much. So last but not least, Kofi Benson. I don't know what he's going to do to the temperature, but let's find out. From Imani Center for Policy and Education.
Thank you. I have to confess, it will sound as if we met, but we didn't. And the reason is that we tend to have the same thing to say, but let me put it this way. We talk too much about energy policy. We've had too many conferences about energy policy. I was a bit conflicted participating in this one because it's another talk shop, and I think what my colleagues have said, bears the issue. So I've been trying to ask myself, why? Why do we do this? And I don't know whether this will bring the temperature up or down, and I don't mean to blame anybody. I think our guys in the commissions and the ministries work hard, like Ben was saying. But in policy, there is a bias. Some people have a discussion bias, some have an implementation bias. We have too much discussion bias, and we should seize it. If there is one thing we should conclude in this meeting, we should tax the people who invite us for these meetings to not invite us to discuss this matter again. What is there to discuss about renewable energy? What is there to discuss about whether solar energy is good or not? So the question is, how do we get these things rolling out? One of the reasons we found is that some of these things, just like the aid industry, they support careers, okay? And the problem is this: if the problem were to go away, then whole desks will vanish because you will not have any more funding to discuss renewable energy. But the truth is that the cost of not implementing these ideas is extreme. It's extreme. So we should push a bit. So the people who invite us here should start giving us more
implementation bias. Even if we discuss these things, we should talk about how many we are going to go down and put in place. And I think that should be one of the points that we can take from everything that has been said here. Now, part of the reason also why we don't get this thing off the ground is because of what we call in Imani policy incoherence. You have one policy saying one thing here and then another action taken away from it. We still tax solar energy in this country. If you don't bring the whole system as a whole, you will pay tax. In fact, I don't see why we even tax any form of energy. We have an energy deficiency. Even if I'm bringing generators, you shouldn't tax me, because anybody who brings energy is helping the system. But if you take solar energy, for instance, and the components that you need, even for solar panel and one 12-volt battery, will take care of 80% of households in Ghana. So what stops us from doing it? And I don't see the 22 billion bill, I don't see the $7 billion bill. If you just said, if you're going to bring anything that can be used for solar energy, is zero rated. Okay? And put things in place that allow people to do it, everybody here will invest in it. So I think we should be moving more towards that area. And honestly, it does not require that much bureaucracy. There's too much bureaucracy around this thing. Let me put it in context again. If you talk about renewable energy, we are talking about biogas, we are talking about solar energy. Wind is technology intensive. I've been to Germany to study their wind system, their energy VND system, where they are translating the whole thing. A lot of it is wind, and we had many opportunities to look at it. The generators, the turbines, if you know the span of one, turbine. So wind, although is viable for us, maybe it's not in the first phase. Just like things like nuclear, which I like, but clearly we are not at the point where we'll be comfortable with that stuff. And even things like algae and other such maybe exotic technology. So we can maybe put those ones aside. But listen, here in this country, just biogas and solar will take care of us. Every household today can put at least 40% of your energy needs on solar today. And if we had a lot of the bureaucracy going into how to amortize that payment and make it easy for you to acquire that system, we'll have a very high uptake. And if you think about the 4 bulbs, 1 battery, and 1 panel system, maybe for people who are in the rural areas, we'll get quite a lot of uptake over a short time. If you take just biomass, every secondary school in this country, between solar and biomass, can take care of at least 90% of their energy needs, at least. So why don't we do it? You have 1,000 people in one place pooping, all right? Honestly. And we are paying electricity. Yeah, every day. We have to say these things because seriously, it doesn't make sense that we don't do these things. And government has to pay electricity for these guys. Now they are using air conditions too. All right? So why don't we do it? And this is just secondary schools. If you talk about the ministries, they are gathered in one place, okay? And connecting and having those systems is really not rocket science. I am aware, about 20 years ago, I'm friend to people like Wisdom Togo Bwenko, who have done a lot of work from the commission, etc. It's done, it's there, it's dusted. So I don't know why we don't do it. So there's a lot to say, but the point in short is this. We need to try and move from talk to action, and all of us must be pushing for that. All the agencies that are working towards it, anytime they call you to talk, let's ask them, when is the action going to come up? My last point is this. I think we should be careful when we conflate capacity with manufacturing. And I'm being careful about this. What I mean is, if you want to convert 40% of all our energy needs to solar, get that level of solar capacity, okay? You may have a long-term view to develop the manufacturing locally, and it's a good thing. We have a lot of silica, we could do that. But we should be careful in terms of strategy and facing, not to confuse the two. Sometimes we do. We say, oh, we need so much solar, so we are going to have to develop a plan where we manufacture them and use them. When you do that, you won't get the thing done. I think we must focus on getting out of fossil fuels and getting out of expensive fuel and getting out of non-renewables and going into the renewables, and so get the solar in, even if you don't manufacture it. If you have that amount of solar here, people will find a business reason to just set up small shops and factories just to service them. The average lifespan of a solar system, a municipal solar system in Ghana is 1 year. Check the street lights. They put them on, most of them about 6 months, they are off. And nobody does anything about them. Just servicing them will create quite a lot of work. Out of that, you are going to move from there to manufacturing. We should separate the issue of bringing in solar capacity, making it easy for people to invest in that area, from trying to manufacture it from day one ourselves. My thoughts are simple. I think we should move into renewables. Honestly, you'll be surprised. I am not one of the people who is very, I don't know what word to use, but I'm not a big fan of changing everything to renewables because I don't think it's possible. Replacement is not possible, but a transition is possible. Now,
be reminded that solar can compete with expensive imported generation of fuel. There's been a point on R&D and the need to develop technology here and to support those who would do it. And finally, a plea for us to move from talk to action. I must comment that we'll probably invite you again next year. So. But on a more serious note, I'll give, first of all, Engineer Seth Mahu an opportunity to react to or to respond to some of the questions or reactions that he has said, and then I'll give you an opportunity as well.
Thank you very much, President. I must say that we at the Ministry of Public Service, we are used to some of these temperatures. So I would do my best to respond to some of the issues. First and foremost, I would want to make some corrections here. In Professor Chris Gordon's submissions, he indicated that the targets are not ambitious enough, and we're looking at 250 megawatts. I think what we said was 2,500 megawatts, 2.5 gigawatts. And I also made a point that the investment projection that we saw, the $7 billion, is not only for the installed capacity. It cuts across the entire spectrum of things that we would want to, we are going to do under the REM, the Renewable Energy Plan, which also includes manufacturing, etc. So that's by way of correction. Ishmael raised a number of issues, and the question is if there's a need for us to actually review the Renewable Energy Act. And he was of the view that rather we should focus on implementing the provisions in the Act. I believe strongly that we have done a lot in the implementation of the Act. And it's out of the activities that we realize that there are issues that we need to address. And because it's a law, you couldn't just do it without going through the right processes. And this is why we need to call for an amendment so we can address some of the provisions that we think are not giving us the space to be able to implement or develop the industry. There were also issues, particularly from Imani, why we wouldn't want to do renewables. We pay a lot of lip services, talk shows. I want to encourage my learned colleague that he should try and participate in the fair from today up to Thursday. He would be in a better position to appreciate some of the